I often recommend to students that one helpful way to enter into the teaching of any biblical passage is to look for the ways the passage touches on important theological themes that appear in systematic theology. Now, not every portion of the Bible will have something to say about every theological proposition, but reading a passage with basic theological propositions in mind will often help to provide an orientation toward a biblical passage. For instance, we might ask, what does Genesis chapter 1 teach about God that systematic theologians emphasize? Well, among other things, it teaches that God is the creator of the universe. And what does it say about human beings that is emphasized in systematic theology? Well, it teaches that we're creatures, that we're the image of God, and that God has commanded us to exercise dominion over the earth. Learning how specific passages touch on the factual claims of systematic theology is one of the greatest enhancements of exegesis that systematics offers. As valuable as propositions may be for exegesis, we must also become aware of one of the most significant ways they can hinder our interpretation of Scripture. We've spoken already about the ways that systematic theologians interpret Scripture through factual reduction, how they focus on the explicit and implicit factual claims of biblical passages and marginalize other things the Scriptures have for us. But the fact is, God inspired Scripture to impact us on a variety of levels, and He did this because we need His guidance in all of these ways. So when we habitually highlight only factual claims, we cut ourselves off from many things that God offers us in Scripture. We can speak of the various impacts that Scriptures were designed to have in many different ways, but one helpful approach is to speak of three interconnected dimensions of all biblical texts. In the first place, biblical passages have informative impact. That is to say, they convey explicit and implicit facts that we should know and believe. This is the strength of systematic theology. Its goal is to isolate and collate these facts into theological propositions. But at the same time, biblical passages also have directive impact. They give us explicit and implicit moral directions for our lives. This is most obvious when we approach passages that come in the form of commands. But even passages that are designed primarily to state information also imply moral responsibilities. Paul made this point very clearly in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 16 and 17. Listen to his words there once again. All Scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the man of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. According to Paul, every biblical passage is designed to have some measure of directive impact. In the third place, biblical passages also have affective impact. They explicitly or implicitly target the emotions of readers. This function of Scripture is most obvious when we read highly emotional texts like the Psalms or other passages where biblical writers emphasize emotions. But every biblical passage has the potential to touch us emotionally. Consider Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 through 40, where Jesus summarized the Old Testament in this way. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. In the Scriptures, love is a very emotional concept. And according to Jesus, it is fundamental to our faith. Biblical writers call for us to experience all sorts of holy emotions. They expect us to be motivated to hate sin and its consequences. They expect us to weep and to rejoice and to experience the full range of proper human emotions in response to what we see on the pages of Scripture. This manifold design of the Scriptures is the reason we must not restrict ourselves to looking for theological propositions in the Bible. It's important to get our facts straight, but it's just as important to get our morals and our emotions straight as well. The riches of Scripture wait to be discovered through careful exegesis. But careful interpretation of the Bible must be broad enough to uncover all that the Scriptures offer us. So it is that propositions and systematics offer us many values and many dangers. They can enhance Christian living, interaction in community, and the exegesis of Scripture in many ways, but they can also hinder our access to these three major theological resources. In this lesson, we've explored propositions and systematics, and we've come to a basic understanding of what they are and why they are important. We've also seen how propositions are formed in systematic theology, and we've explored some of the values and dangers they present. Forming theological propositions is essential to the process of building systematic theology. We must know how to express and defend the facts of the Christian faith. For this reason, theological propositions have been crucial to building systematic theology throughout the centuries, and they are vital to building sound systematic theology even today.